Hello and welcome to Washington Post Live. I'm Jerry Brewer, a sports columnist at the Post. Today I am joined by Doug Williams, senior advisor to the Washington Commanders president, and the first Black quarterback to start in and win a Super Bowl. Doug Williams, Bayou Bullet, welcome to Washington Post Live.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
All right, Doug, let's get started. In 1988, when you won the Super Bowl, you were one of three Black starting quarterbacks in the NFL. We began this year with 11, nearly a third, a little more than a third of the league. What do you think of this moment?
Well, back then when we only had three, we were glad to have that because before that we didn't have any. But I see where we are now. 30% of the players at quarterback are Black now. You say we made some progress, and I think we all know we still got ways to go. But this week simplified the fact that we got two Black quarterbacks starting in the Super Bowl, and a lot of people want to know why we have to say we got two Black quarterbacks rather than just saying two quarterbacks. There's a significant reason why we say two Black quarterbacks because of history of Black quarterbacks not getting the opportunity to play.
I've been so moved, Doug, by just how emotional you've been about Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes matching up. Tell us more about how personal this is for you.
Well, over the last week or so, I've had an opportunity to come to grips with it. But when everything first happened, when Patrick and the Kansas City Chiefs punched their ticket, which Jalen had already done earlier that day, a lot of things came over me. Emotion was high. I had water in my eye, no tears running down my face, but I had water in my eye because I'm sitting there thinking about not that we have two Black quarterbacks playing in the Super Bowl. I'm thinking about the guys who were denied an opportunity before me to get a chance to play in the National Football League. James Harris, who was playing, but he was denied a lot. You got Joe Gilliam, Marlon Briscoe, Jimmy Ray. You got so many guys who was not given an opportunity to show their talents and let this world know that Black quarterback did start playing when I played in the Super Bowl. So the emotion wasn't about that time as much as it was about the past.
Uh, I think people forget, Doug, that that's not ancient history. We're talking 30, 40 years ago. Uh, what were the misconceptions about Black quarterbacks then? And how much do you think the game has changed in terms of respecting diversity at the position?
Well, it wasn't that long. You're talking about 35 years ago, the first quarterback playing in the Super Bowl. And you got to look at how old is this league. I mean, we over 100 years old. And it's just 35 years ago that the first Black quarterback played in that. I think that says a lot about where we are from diversity standpoint and how far we still have to go. And there's no doubt in my mind that we're on our way from that standpoint of the quarterback. But there's so many other things that has to be done. And I know everything take its time, but we still talking about 100 years. Do it take 100 years to get something done when you already got people who can do the job? Quarterbacks, you got coaches, you got quarterback coaches, you got offensive coordinator who can already do the job, who are not being given the opportunity.
Doug, to your moment in 1988, you took a kind of a circuitous route in your career. How were you able to persevere?
Yeah, we talk about that route. James Harris and I, we always talk about the road that was less traveled. And that road that less traveled mostly by African American quarterback. but I look at it from a standpoint, when you talk about persevere, you got to think about what you're up against, what you got to do, and what you're supposed to do. If you do your job, everything else will take care of itself. And that year for me was a rocky year, but at the same time, I didn't give up. And you can't give up. If you give up, you might as well give out. And my thing was always been that I was the backup quarterback for a while, but in my mindset, I wasn't a backup. I was a starter because that's what I had been all my life. And you got to just keep going forward. You can't fall for what people think of you, what they say. You can't worry about it. Your job is to make sure your head is between the lines on the field and not worry about what's off the field. And I think that's how I did it. I had great teammates who helped me. And I think at the end of the day, it's all about the coaches and the team that you're around most of the time. And all other stuff don't bother you.
Doug, you've been just a really enthusiastic spokesperson for all Black quarterbacks of your generation. I'm wondering what the conversation is like between you and a lot of them. How do they feel about this moment?
Well, I think they all kind of feel like I feel. You know, you're talking about a fraternity that is it's not a fraternity. You don't have to do anything to be in it, but be Black and be a quarterback in the National Football League to be in this fraternity. I think it's automatic. I think when you see each other, you know, you all know what you've been through and what you had to deal with and what you had to deal with. So you don't have to say a word about it. You just talk about it and just talk about other things and just realize that we all a part of this, and we got to go forward. And I think this week with those two young guys, man, and the good part about it is still young. They really don't understand. I don't know, you know, what guys like myself, James Harris, on back Warren Moon had to deal with. But I think they got some kind of idea, especially this week, because I know they've been hit with a lot of question about themselves being a Black quarterback, the two Black quarterbacks. Patrick has been to the Super Bowl. This is his third time. So I don't think they need to ask him, but I'm sure they're asking him about Jalen and him being quarterbacks in this game so that they understand where we are. And if it's not, it's a good history lesson for them and all the people who are big fans of the National Football League.
Doug, tell me about some of the those painful experiences. Like what is still what was overt, what was kind of subtle and understood all these years later, what still stands out to you from what both from what you experienced, but then also from what some of your friends did?
Well, you know what I experienced, I'm sure was not as bad. I mean, I'm sure mine was bad, but you know, I think about Marlon Briscoe, who played quarterback for the Denver Broncos, and the next year he was traded to Buffalo. You know, I think that itself they had a meeting with Don Marlon, and next thing you know, he was traded. What James Harris went through when people sent him death threat letters, you know, things like that. In my case, I only got letters that with no return address that said derogatory thing. Got watermelons with a letter in it that say throw this to the ends. You know, maybe they can catch that. Just things like that. You know, but you look at it from the standpoint. You know, you can't answer people like that because a lot of people are not going to change. No, will change. Even this day, you still got people wondering why we still talking about Black quarterback. There's a reason why. It's because we over 100 years old and we just getting here, and there's no reason why we should. But at the end of the day, you know, you can't worry about that because you know, I got drafted in 1978 in the first round in Tampa. You know, nobody knew who Doug Williams was. We're going to a historical Black college, you know, and you got a Black quarterback. You drafted in the first round. Could we get somebody a lot better? You know, you had to deal with things like that. But at the end of the day, you just got to put your head down and go forward, and that's what I did.
Doug, we're in a time now in which I think if you go back to the last 8 MVPs, 4 of them have been Black, you know, counting Patrick Mahomes as 2 MVPs twice. When you look at the list of highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, you see Mahomes and so many Black and or mobile quarterbacks. The game has changed to a point in which skills commonly associated with Black quarterbacks are a necessity because of the athleticism of defensive linemen and so on and so forth. Do you think that the Black quarterback is now the standard in the NFL?
No, I'm not going to say it's the standard in the NFL. I think what the Black quarterback brings to the NFL is the ability to not only stand in the pocket and think and make decisions, but also if they got in trouble, they can get out of the pocket. I think that is essential in the league. Not that the regular drop back quarterback, you don't run, just stand back there and throw. Like, you know, there's not that many Tom Brady's, not that many Peyton Mannings. You know, you need to be able to move these days. And both of those guys move well within the pocket. I mean, even Aaron Rodgers know how to move. Patrick Mahomes been doing it for the last 5 years, the same thing that Aaron Rodgers been doing. Patrick just know how to translate and move in the pocket and make things happen. And Jalen, You can say what you want about Jalen Hurts, his athletic ability and all that, but Jalen transformed himself from when he was a couple of years in college in Alabama. He's not the guy you just look at as a runner. He's a guy that you got to respect as a guy who can stand in the pocket and get the job done. And if you turn your back on him, next thing you know, he can be running up your heels. I mean, that's a different trait than just your regular drop back quarterback. And I think it's good to have that to be efficient in the NFL.
Do you think that that skill set will ever change? And I'm starting to wonder, normally when you have athletic evolution, it forever changes the game. And so I'm wondering, I know that guy operating in the pocket is still going to be important to football, but I don't sense that there is ever going to be a revolt on guys who can play outside of the pocket because the game has changed so much.
Well, let's look at it realistically. Jalen, Patrick, all those guys, Lamar Jackson, was probably graded harder than the other quarterbacks because they were trying to find out exactly what are they. And at the end of the day, they drafted him as a quarterback, and they came to their mind, and their mindset is that he's a quarterback who just be exceptional athletically. And ain't nothing wrong with that. If you got that ability to get out the pocket if you have to, it's better than getting sacked. And you look at it from that standpoint, but at the same time, you look at Philadelphia, they got two receivers that are dominant in the NFL, and Deontay Smith and A.J. Brown. So in order to get those guys the ball, you got to stand in the pocket and get it to them, which tell you Jalen understands the game at the quarterback position from reading defense and making decisions. Now, the other part of this, he has the ability to get out of it, run when he wants to, run when he see a play that's going to get him 8 to 10 yards. And ain't nothing wrong with that if you can do that. See, people forget that a few years ago, you got a Hall of Fame quarterback in the guy from San Francisco, can't think his name right now, but at the same time, he went 75 yards with a run. Was he athletic? They forget about Fran Tarkenton a long time ago, ran around the pocket, all the time. He was athletic. So it's they pick their poison. Who they want to say is an athletic, and because of his athletic ability, he can't play quarterback. We should move him to another position. But I think we passed that now.
We talked about how the game has changed. I'm wondering if it's systematically within the NFL. Do you think anything has changed that has allowed there to be greater equity, equality on the field?
The game hadn't changed. I think what happened, the coordinators and the coaches, they changed with whoever they have at quarterback. And you got to get the best out your quarterback. Everybody knows the quarterback is the one guy that you depend on most. You find out what he can do, and you take advantage of it. A few years ago, Lamar Jackson came out. A couple of people say he should be a wide receiver. Well, he was MVP one year. He threw 35 TDs. And if you're a quarterback, the last I checked, that's what quarterback does: throw the ball downfield and get TDs. Now, because he's such an exceptional athlete, you can't deem him for that. That's fortunate that he can do that. That's the most important thing. And so when you talk about change, I don't know whether that has changed because you're still going to have quarterbacks who come in and just strictly drop back and just do it. But a lot of coaches would probably like to have the ability with the way the game changed defensively. You would love to have a guy who can get away from the rush because the rush has changed tremendous over the years, and you don't know where they're coming from. But if you can't escape, you pretty pigeonhole yourself to just that guy sitting in the pocket.
Like now, with so many more black franchise quarterbacks, let's talk about who they are and what they care about, right? Patrick Mahomes has been a big supporter of Black Lives Matter. Other guys have taken on social justice issues and made that central to the conversation. What do you think about how they have used their voices? And also, what do you think about how the public has embraced or has not embraced the things that they care about off the field?
Well, there's no doubt about it. Patrick Mahomes, with his 15 Foundation, has been doing tremendous work in the Kansas City area. Jalen now, who has come to the front for, nobody can say anything bad about Jalen, no matter what he does in the community. And I think at the end of the day, these guys understand the difference between the haves and the have-not, and what they're trying to do with their situation as a popularity, the ability to make money, is to make sure that they give back to the people who deserve it. I think at the end of the day, you realize that a lot of people support what they do and they like what they do, and I think that's important that they can do that, and I applaud them for that.
When they receive backlash, do you have any advice on them on how to handle it?
Where it's hard to imagine Patrick or Jalen getting in the backlash at this particular time. I don't know where it come from, but if they receiving backlash, I think that's just a very, very small segment who will give anybody backlash no matter what they do. So you can't worry about those guys.
Now, Doug, let's transition to go a little bit broader with this. Tony Dungy has always talked about being able to draw a direct line between the rise, if you will, of black quarterbacks and the possibilities for black coaches um, if mindset shifted. Do you see a correlation there?
Yeah, there is a correlation, but the mind shift had not adjusted a change. A few years ago, Tony and Lovie Smith was two black coaches coaching in the Super Bowl. And I thought at that particular time it would open up the minds of the owners to say, hey, these guys got the ability to lead a team. But that has not happened. When you look at the landscape of black coaches now, that has not happened. Quarterback coaches, it just so happened that Jalen in Philadelphia has a black quarterback coach, and Patrick has a black offensive coordinator. But at the same time, we're not giving guys the opportunity to be coordinators and quarterback coaches, and we definitely not giving them the opportunity to be head coaches. And it's hard to say that the pipeline is not out there. There's too many guys who deserve an opportunity to be a head coach in this league, and it has not happened. And I keep going back to Bieniemy. How many interviews that he had over the last 2 to 3 years, and he is not a head coach. And the excuse they all use is he don't call a play. Well, you know what? Andy has had two guys that left him and became head coaches that didn't call a play. So you can't use that. You got to look at the whole scape of this and realize that we as a whole, as blacks, are not getting that chance to be head coaches.
Doug, I don't think people necessarily realize how central you are to some of the 360-degree view of solving this problem, whether it's um, Black Coaches Quarterback Summit, like those things, really kind of understanding the roots of the issue and trying to make sure that guys are getting the training and the opportunities. I'm wondering, I mean, we're in the middle of another hiring cycle. D'Amico Ryans is one of the three coaches who've gotten a job. Two other jobs are open: Indianapolis and Arizona. The Rooney Rule has been enhanced to in a lot of ways, but also to try to diversify interviews and opportunities at the coordinator level. All of these efforts, I'm just wondering, how do you feel about in terms of policy and programming things are going, and how soon do you think we might see legitimate change as a result of these efforts, or at least an evaluation to say whether it's working or not?
Wow, I wish I could put my hands on it. James Harris and I, we started the quarterback summit a few years ago, and last year, thank God that the D'Amico Ryan was there. He had an opportunity to present himself. Even Bieniemy was there presenting. We had so many other guys that has the ability to be coordinators, coaches, or quarterback coaches that presented themselves. And we started this with exactly what you said in mind, and that is to give everybody a chance to see these guys, the owners, the general manager, everybody get a tape of this, the ones that are not there, and they can see them guys present. And I think we wanted them to understand that these guys are capable. And we hadn't had the success we would like to have, but I don't think you can quit. I think you got to keep going. And that's what we're going to do is keep bringing these guys to the front four and hope that they get a chance to be seen, a chance not only to be seen, but given an opportunity to coach. And we talk about the Rooney Rule. I think the Rooney Rule is great from a standpoint of bringing guys in, but I think at the end of the day, we would love to see the Rooney Rule not only bring them in, but give them a chance to work, give them opportunity to coach. And I think what has been taken advantage of is the Rooney Rule from a standpoint of saying, well, we brought in 3 or 4 guys, but this is who I'm going to hire. A lot of times you feel like they bring them in to interview, but in their mindset, their mind is already made up before the interview is ever done. And that's what we want to get past. I think that's the most important thing.
Doug, I can't talk to you about coaches without taking you back to Grambling, and talking about Eddie Robinson's legacy. You're a part of his legacy. 200 NFL players are a part of his legacy. Tell me about Eddie Robinson, and what about him stays with you today?
Wow, you talking about Coach Robinson, man. I never ever will forget playing for Coach Eddie Robinson. It was a different dynamic. You play for a guy who only talk about his life. He talk about America. He talk about putting yourself in position to be able to take care of yourself and your family. That was the most important thing. Football was big to him, but the Joes was better. There's the X's and the O's, and then there's the Joes. After each practice, we talked about what you should be on campus. Being a good student on campus. Respecting the ladies on campus. Going to church, graduate. That was the most important thing. And now when I look back and I look where I am today, yeah, football took care of itself. He gave me an opportunity to do that. But at the same time, mindset wise, he gave me an opportunity to respect other people and to put myself in a position where I can take care of myself. So when you talk about Eddie Robinson, not only me, but all my kids and everybody else he coached kids, we all part of that tree. And our kids become branches, and it spread out like that because we all had an opportunity to spend time with Eddie Robinson.
Doug, we're in this moment. I mean, you coached at Grambling, but now we're in this moment in which more prominent former NFL players have gone to HBCUs. You still have Eddie George at Tennessee State. Deion Sanders just left Jackson State for Colorado. There's this moment of attention and exposure for HBCU football that hasn't been there, at least in recent times. What do you think about this? And what are we not talking about HBCU football that we should?
Well, let me say this: there's only one, exactly one, Deion Sanders in America. I'm not a big fan of bringing in ex players into black college who really don't understand black college. And I can tell you this from when we was in school as a player and even as a coach when I went back. One thing I always remember is what Coach Robinson told us when we was playing. And what he told us that, we've done so much with so little, we can almost do anything without nothing. So what that tells you, we at the HBCU, we understand the funding. We don't have the deep pocket alumni that send money back. So when you take on a job at a HBCU, that's one thing you should understand. But the most important thing is going to those HBCU and building character in the guys that are going to be playing for you. And you get a chance to roll up your sleeve, whatever you think the problem is, you can do that without broadcasting. I think that's the most important thing. If you want to be there, know what the problem is before you get there, and whatever has to be done, you do it. And once you start doing that, you'll find somebody who will rally around with you to make sure you are able to do some of the things. You're not gonna be able to do everything. If when you hire a guy that played in the league that didn't go to a HBCU, they really don't understand the root of the HBCU. They was put there for the biggest reason the HBCUs was put there was for the education of the black and brown kids at a younger age that didn't have an opportunity to go to other schools. And at the end of the day, they end up having football teams. And we talk about these coaches in the time now. Forgot Coach Robinson won 400 games. That was W.C. Garden at Jackson State. That was Marino Castle at Southern University. That's Pete Richards from Winston-Salem to Southern University. We've always Jake Gates at Florida A&M. We've always had good coaches. So I think what has transpired is the ads and president got caught up on Dion and not understanding there's only one Deion Sanders. What Deion Sanders brought to Jackson State was something that out the ordinary. He lifted Jackson State, and what he did with the lift of Jackson State, he made it broad across the whole scape that every HBCU is going to be with Jackson. That ain't going to happen. So we got to look at it and be mindful of what you're dealing with first. I think that's the most important thing.
Doug, we've talked about so many big picture things, but let's just talk about you as a football player. Obviously, we have a couple of diehard Commanders fans in our newsroom, and a producer had a question that I want to quote him. Doug, your team was down 10-0 in the second quarter. A lot of people thought the Denver Broncos were about to blow you out. And then you engineered an unprecedented 5 scoring drives in one quarter, scoring 35 points and throwing 4 touchdowns. What was it like to play the best game of your life on the biggest stage?
Wow, that's a good question. But the way I look at that is the fact that I had the best team that day that was working with me. It wasn't an individual thing, it was a team thing. You got to credit the defense for giving us an opportunity to do what we did. You got to credit the offensive line who did exactly what they did because I was still limping. I was hurt. I couldn't get out of nobody's way. You got to credit the wide receivers for getting open and catching the pass. Timmy Smith for running the football. We had so many things working that day. It was one of those situations, whatever Coach Gibbs called, it was working. So I look at it, it was the epitome of what execution is all about. And we did that on that particular day.
Doug, I got 2 things for you real quick. Which player today reminds you the most of yourself?
Wow. People wouldn't believe this, but I was able to move around like Patrick, but not exactly like Patrick. But I was strictly pocket guy. Wasn't going anywhere, and didn't intend to go nowhere. But I don't know whether there's anybody that play exactly like me, and I don't know what I played exactly like nobody else. I think everybody got to actually be themselves, and I think that's the most important thing. But some of the things that Patrick does, I remember my rookie year playing in Kansas City. Playing in Kansas City, that's the thing about it. I was player of the game that year. I was a rookie. And I can remember rolling to the right and rolling to my left, about to get sacked, and I put the ball in my left hand and threw it to Ricky Bell. And he caught the ball with a first down. I think when I look at Patrick do stuff like that, that's the only thing I think of myself as. But all the other stuff that Patrick does, is nothing like I used to do.
I love how you said you didn't intend to go anywhere as a runner. uh, Last thing, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Who you got on Sunday? Eagles or Chiefs?
Both of them. I can't lose. I cannot lose.
So they're both gonna play well, and we're gonna have a great game. I'll just give my prediction. I'm gonna say Chiefs because we got a producer who's an Eagles fan, so I'm gonna say it Chiefs.
Well,
Doug, what do you
you
say?
know, it's, it's unfortunate that the game can't end in a tie. So, at the end of the day, I'm pulling for both of those guys.
Hey, I don't want overtime, Doug, because that would affect my deadline. I wouldn't be able to write a good enough column, but I'll take a great. I just need it to end in regulation.
Okay, we got
Doug, thank you, man. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We'll have to leave it there. Doug Williams, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks to all of you for watching. To check out what interviews we have coming up, visit WashingtonPostLive.com to register and find out more about our upcoming programs. I'm Jerry Brewer. Thank you for joining us on Washington Post Live.